Good evening. Welcome to another wonderful episode of 12 Faces of Sober Speaks podcast. I am your host, Kenneth Watson. This is episode number 67. Tonight's guest is Priscilla. She is an let me go ahead and pull up the info on her real quick. What's going on? 2 turntables and a microphone. Is that on 2 turntables, a microphone, and an 8? Yeah. Thank you for tuning in. We gonna bring the guest in just a second. I'ma read this. How's your day going, bro? Let me see. Let me read this this bio on her real quick, and then she should be coming in here in just a second. Let's see. Priscilla Maria is JD. That stands for Juris. What did I put it on? A Juris Doctor. She's a certified trauma recovery coach and founder of Cycle Breakers Club LLC. She helps others to break harmful habits and cycles of generational trauma through her coaching practice. This year, she celebrated 11 years alcohol-free on November 2nd, and that's from 2011. She believes in healing power of storytelling and encouraging others to heal out loud. So let me go ahead and bring her in and let's jump into the interview. All right. Good evening. How you doing?
Good
How you
evening.
doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am great. It got cold rather quick up here. It went from like 60 something early in the day, so now like in the 40s. And I'm I would prefer to be in Florida than to
Yes.
be to experience this winter that I'm about to see here starting in a couple of days because it's about to be rather cold. But welcome to 12 Faces Sober Speaks podcast. I am truly thankful to have you on. I got a chance to sit in on your live last night, which was amazing.
Thank
And
you.
so, but like I said, I think I've been following you now probably, I would say, a couple weeks now,
Mhm.
or give or take. But like I said, I am very thankful to have you on, and I know it's going to be an amazing show. So without further ado, I want you to well, first, welcome to the show. I definitely like the fact that you have that many years of sobriety under your belt. I'm getting ready to celebrate 6 years of sobriety next Tuesday. Didn't think I was going to make it this far, but I'm truly blessed and thankful that I have. It hasn't been the easiest road, but I am definitely thankful because life has changed just by giving up alcohol. So definitely thankful for that. But enough of me. So let's just start. Where you from, and we'll just go from there.
Okay. Well, congratulations on almost 6 years, you said?
Yes.
That is definitely amazing. Sorry that the weather is getting cold. I used to live in Michigan before I moved here.
Okay. Okay.
Hated it. So
Okay.
I feel you on the cold weather. But as far as where I grew up, that in itself is a pretty long answer. So I
Okay.
was born in Michigan because my parents were attending school there.
Okay.
Once I was born, like less than a year, they went back to Los Angeles
Okay.
and then San Francisco, San Diego,
Ooh.
Hershey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Poconos, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Montgomery County, then Frederick County, and then I went to school in Baltimore, and then LA, and then back to Pennsylvania, and then Irvine, California, which is Orange County,
Mm-hmm.
and then LA for a little bit, and then Michigan, and now Florida. So
Okay.
I've moved all my life.
Okay. Well, I grew up in San Diego, so
Okay.
yeah, and lived in Connecticut at one
Okay.
point. I think it was New London, I believe.
I lived
Okay.
in Avon. It was Hartford County.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Harford County. It was,
Yeah, I was a young pup, so I don't even remember anything. I just know that when we lived there, from the pictures, I think I might have been like one or two. I know it was snowing. That's all I know
yeah.
about the place. Yes. So now do you was alcohol present in the home like growing up?
No, it
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
present. We barely even had soda. No
Mm,
soda. Not big coffee drinkers either. No alcohol whatsoever. Actually,
okay.
no, I take that back. It was maybe like very rarely like a wine or something, or like my grandfather would bring flor de caña, which is so my dad's from Nicaragua, and that's like a very well-known drink, but it's more like a gift. It wasn't like my dad was turning up in the corner. Um, but no, and that was very intentional because my mother, she grew up in a bar in
Mm,
Ecuador. So her
okay.
house doubled as a bar, like
Mm,
a local bar. And so she had a lot of unpleasant experiences with people that were intoxicated. Like she knew from a young age she did not want to touch alcohol because of what she saw.
mm,
And her father was an alcoholic.
okay.
And then on my dad's side, my grandfather also was an alcoholic. And
Mm,
so both of them were very turned off to alcohol and drugs. So definitely skipped a generation because my
okay.
brother as well is in recovery. And yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting because I've noticed that because I know like my old next door neighbor in San Diego, he his father was a very very heavy drinker, and to this day he has refused to touch it because of just what he saw growing up and the incidents of his father being intoxicated. So that does kind of sound common. Like I said, for me, my dad drank. My mom didn't drink because of what she saw growing up from her uncles and stuff like that, them fighting and almost killing each other, being intoxicated. So yeah, it's definitely interesting to hear that. So at what okay, at what age did you experience your first drink?
So I want to say it's probably not even like a full drink, but when we lived in San Diego, we would always go to Tijuana, and there was a right, of course, and there was
Mm,
a restaurant, Los Arcos, and anytime it was somebody's birthday, they would give you a shot. I
mm,
literally didn't even know that was alcohol. I just knew that this really tasted disgusting, and I couldn't finish
mm,
it, but it was just like, oh, ha ha ha, like, try the shot, and I never finished it because it was horrible.
mm,
Um, and there's more experiences like that, like trying a little bit of beer, like in Ecuador, trying wine when I was like 11. Um, but it was all like family supervised, so it didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong. And it was more of like, you can just try it just to try it, but you're not about to actually drink it or like
mm.
get
Just
drunk.
get a little
Yeah.
sip, a little
So
little taste,
technically,
and then that'll
yeah.
be it. Yeah.
So technically, that is my answer. But when I first really drank and became intoxicated was 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was that? What was that like for you? Your first experience being drunk?
Um, I don't think I've ever been asked that, or maybe I did when I went to rehab. But um, it was very much binge drinking. Like I don't
Mm,
know anything other than binge drinking. So
okay.
even that first time, it was at my cousin's wedding, and I became intoxicated. It was just like one after the other,
Mm,
and it was fun, and it was. I almost felt like I was almost a natural at it, like it just came
mm,
to me, and I think I also naturally. I was definitely intoxicated, but I think I maybe had like a naturally higher tolerance than some people. I don't know if that's genetic. Um, but yeah, I remember that night as pretty vividly. It was, yeah.
mm. Now, did you? So how was it like for you in terms of like um so once you did actually start drinking, like was that like did that become the norm? Or was that just like okay at the family functions you were drinking, or was it more or less like all right, whenever because you 17. I remember in San Diego at 17, or in high school and going to parties or going to the homie's house and somehow somebody would mysteriously come with all of an abundance of alcohol. So
Right.
so how was that for you? Like were you 17? So that was like your last year of high school. So did was that something that carried on into college life or anything like that?
I've had a very interesting path to alcohol. So I think what I've done over the years is rationalize things.
Mhm.
So, oh, I'm with family, so I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm in a safe environment. And so the first couple of times, yes, I became inebriated. And even though I was getting very inebriated, um, I still rationalized, but I'm with family and it's okay. So actually, when I went to those high school parties and there was alcohol and everything else, it's like, nah, I didn't touch any of that.
Okay.
So it made me feel, I guess that was my caveat was like, oh, but if there's family, then I can. But if it's just friends, then no. And I was a very high achieving student, so I was like, I'm not about to mess up anything for this.
And then, was there any trauma that you faced at any point in your life?
Definitely. Childhood trauma, adolescent trauma, adulthood trauma. Um, so I would say the trauma prior to drinking was violence inside the home, not between my parents, but between me and like someone else. And then sexual abuse when I was younger. Um, yeah, so up until like yeah 17 to 20, those were the traumas that were definitely weighing on me. So I had a
Mm,
lot of unresolved anger, uh, shame, confusion, and pain.
mm. And so now you mentioned from 17 to 20. So did it like with each year did it increase and was that like how you masked the pain like masked the trauma that you faced was you went to drinking? Because I know that's what I did. Like once I got to a point where I started having like certain issues happen in my life, it was like, okay, well, I'm already drinking. Now these problems are there. Now I'm going to, increase the volume.
Hmm. Um, I don't even know how to answer that because I never measured the amount of liquor that I consumed. It was
Okay.
always binge. So, and I think maybe that was deliberate. So I wouldn't have that sense of accountability. But I would say yes, it definitely increased as my usage progressed. And I can say that because of the consequences of my drinking, they're getting worse,
Mm,
like blacking out, things like that.
mm,
Um, and I knew for me, I was definitely self-medicating. I never used it because I was awkward, because I never stopped going out and like having a
mm,
social life, and that tends to be confusing for some people. Like, why do you go out if you're not about to drink or you're not about to do anything? And for me, it's like it would. My favorite part of going out is socializing and dancing, so I'm gonna still go out. And also, I never used it as like liquid courage or to relax. That was never me. I used it because I was angry, and that was
mm.
like my anger management in a bottle.
Okay.
I
Mm,
remember saying that actually when I was drunk. And yeah, I was just angry, and it
mm,
made me feel less angry.
okay. That's the opposite of me because I know that like I would be like real chill, and then as soon as I got that liquor in me, it was just like a whole nother monster that I'm thankful for that I'm no longer. Like people was like, man, you were just real laid back and chill, and I'm like, that's who I really am. You know what I'm saying? That other person had those problems that I didn't know how to address. So, hello. Thank you for coming in. I forgot. I got a few friends. I used to work with, she saw me, she witnessed, I won't say the company, but I was intoxicated in Arizona and she probably didn't even know, or maybe she did, but that was many moons ago back in, I think like 2008. As a matter of fact, right before I got in trouble. So yeah, I used to work with one of my former coworkers and stuff. So thank you for coming in. But, yeah, so you had Kate, did any of your family members like say something to you, or more or less like your friends, like, okay, these now, like you said, the blacking out and having, episodes as far as like the excessive drinking. Did anybody pull you to the side and say, hey, like, you might want to, fix these problems?
No, I don't think so.
Really?
Um, yeah, because so once I went to college, like I went to college saying that I wasn't going to touch alcohol, and that did not last. But basically, most of my drinking was not done around family.
Okay.
So my family wasn't observing me.
Okay.
And the people that I was mostly around, no, nobody, nobody said anything.
Mm,
And to clarify, because I know you mentioned like you're super chill, but then the alcohol would change you. Like, nah, I drank with the intention of being more chill, but that was not always the case.
okay.
So I can see why some people didn't want to approach me or even go there with me. Um, but no, no one ever like sat down and had an intervention or expressed concern.
Mm,
That
okay.
was like, if anything was said, it was from my parents, and it was after I went to treatment and things like that. And they're like, whoa,
Okay.
like,
And so now, was when you went to treatment, was that something that was voluntary, or was that yeah, was it voluntary? Okay.
yeah,
And
everything was voluntary. That I was not given, so I went to my first treatment program at 19, so right after my first year of college.
mm,
And yeah, everything was voluntary. I wasn't given an ultimatum. I wasn't forced or threatened or anything. I I didn't really understand what was going on with me all the way, but I knew something was wrong. And my brother at the time already been had like a history of substance abuse, and so that's why the spotlight turned on to me, was because okay, our son has serious addiction issues. Let's just check on this one.
mm,
But they didn't really know what I was doing in college. So it really was me deciding to go. And honestly, I wanted to go because I wanted to talk about my trauma. Like that
mm,
was low key why I wanted to go. Because the
okay.
wilderness program is not a drug rehabilitation program, but it's still a very intense program where people go when typically they have like legal issues, or they're not, it's an intervention program type thing.
Okay. Now, that now I think you just mentioned that you went. Did you go to rehab more than once, or just that one particular time?
Oh no, I went more than once. So I do count the wilderness program as one. That was 6 weeks. And then after that, they recommended I go to an intensive outpatient
Okay.
treatment program for alcohol. And that was, I don't even know how long that was supposed to be, but I did not finish. So I probably went like a few weeks. And then the third treatment center was not for alcohol or drugs, it was for my eating disorder,
Mm,
which to me is an addiction. Like, honestly, that was worse on me than drinking, because
mm,
with drinking, I can go the whole day without drinking to survive, and I can go into many settings where there's no alcohol. But with eating, I have to eat every day, multiple times a day. That was very, very hard.
okay. And then so now, thank you for sharing about the going into the multiple I guess, type of therapy or rehab programs. Because I myself went to three rehabs. I don't. I'm
Okay.
not ashamed of it. I went to I went to one in Phoenix, two up here in Minnesota, and one in Alexandria, Virginia. So I know all too well. I know the last one I went to, I that was, me doing a self referral. The other ones was like I was mandated. The Army mandated me to go in Virginia. The one in Phoenix, my family tricked me into going to that one, and then the one up here in Minneapolis, I was tricked to go to that one. That was the first one I went to. So, but I mean, do you think that those actually helped you in any way?
Um, so with the wilderness program, it was helpful because it was so extreme. You're
Okay.
literally, I mean, the whole program is a little sus, and they are controversial. Not everyone agrees with them, but like for example, they take you blindfolded to the campsite. So whatever. Like it was a little theatrical, but the thing
Mm.
is you have no idea where you're at, what time it is, um, what day it is. Like they don't tell you anything.
Oh wow.
You can't speak to anyone without a staff member in between you. They oh my gosh, you can't even use a bathroom without them somehow being involved. Like it was very bizarre. But it was nice because I was able to be away from everything. I'm
Hmm.
literally in the desert in Utah, somewhere in Utah. And I mean, I wear glasses. I had to wear my glasses. I had to take all my piercings out. You can't use razors. You can't use deodorant. You have nothing. Like it's very extreme. You
Yeah, you
eat the
living in
same,
living in land for real.
yeah, you eat dehydrated beans and dehydrated rice every day. Except for Fridays, and it's it's very intense. So I honestly I don't really want to give them too much credit because I there are some things I disagree with, but
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it did allow me to speak to my parents about my trauma
Okay.
and to my brother and tell them more about what was going on in my life. So they did facilitate that discussion. With the outpatient, not really. Um, it was whatever. Um, yeah, they put you on Antabuse, which is a pill that if
I
you're on and
tested.
you do consume alcohol, you become very ill,
Hmm.
and you get urine analysis and things like that. But it wasn't. I don't really have anything to say about that. And again, like I did not. Oh, I see my brother. Hey. Sorry, my brother just joined. And yeah, so I really didn't get too much out of that. And to be fair, I also did not complete the program. So I was not ready to stop drinking for sure at that point. And I wanted to go back to school because I went straight from the desert for 6 weeks to this intensive outpatient program for several weeks. And, it's getting closer to school starting again. I was like, nah, I want to go back to college. Like, I don't want to be here and delay my education because my education has always been like extremely emphasized and important in my family. So whatever the reason was, I left, and then I don't know if you want me to talk about my eating disorder treatment center, but
Well, that's up to you. It's up to you. Whatever you feel comfortable with sharing.
what I'll say is in all three programs, and additionally, I went to like a couple AA meetings, and I also joined like an anonymous support group on campus at my school. Um, but with literally all of those spaces, they were predominantly white.
Hmm.
And that was not helpful because I'm first generation Latina and that's all I know how to be is Latina. As my culture, my food, etc. And being in those spaces, I'm like, I don't even know. It was just a bit frustrating. Like in the eating disorder treatment, it's like nobody looked like me in any of the recovery spaces. Nobody knows what it's like to be in my shoes as far as my culture and things like that. So that was very frustrating.
Yeah, I totally feel you on that because that's kind of, well, I won't say, because the rehab I went to up here this last time, that was with veterans, so it was kind of a mixed crowd. But I do understand in terms of that aspect because just I've been navigating through the sober community now roughly about, I would say, a little over 2 years, and I'm starting to see people that look like me that understand it. And compared to before, it was like, okay, I'm not finding anybody. And
Yeah.
so the community is growing, which is good. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. But I do understand you because, like I said, even with me going to AA here in Minnesota, in some of these locations, I'm just like, okay, I'm the only brother up in the room. And then when I'm telling my story, and then they're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, when when I first got sober, I was, first, starting going to grad school. So it was like, "Oh my God!" Like you trying to tell me that, that I can't go to school, like type of thing. And it's like, yeah, I had nothing else to do with my life. I had to do something, so I chose to go back to school. It just so happened to be at 37, but I did it. So I feel you, and I totally get what you're saying in terms of like, you know, you kind of want people to relate to you. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Or to, that look like you, regardless of it. They don't speak exactly the same lingo language. At least you have someone that you can relate to that might be going through some of the same things.
I'll give you some examples. Thank you for sharing. Like, for example, in the wilderness program, like I was told that I hate white people. I know that sounds, I do not hate white people.
Hmm.
But that's just kind of because of some of the things I was expressing. I was expressing some of my trauma growing up that did involve, white classmates and things like
Hmm.
that. And it's like, oh, you hate white people. And another time, one of the staff members apparently used the word wetback. I don't know in what context. I was going to say the room, but we're in the desert. I wasn't in the rocks, but it's like they brought it up later, like in group. And I felt like they were trying me to see how I would react because they knew like I struggled with a temper. And that was weird to me because I was like, why would anyone ever use that word in this context? And if I were to react, I would be penalized. So I felt very
Hmm.
trapped. Like it was just weird. So those are just like two examples.
Yeah, that's tough. Like I listen. I grew up in San Diego and experienced a hell of a lot of racism,
Mm.
and up here in Minnesota. So I totally, totally, totally get what you're saying. Now, let's see. Now, something that I wanted to ask when when you were like addressing like you were masking your trauma with alcohol. Do you think it would have been helpful for you to go into therapy? Like, those early, instead of, put it like this, instead of drinking, would it have been a better option to go to therapy?
So actually, I was in therapy since 16.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and kind of branching off of what I was speaking previously about those recovery spaces being predominantly white, the psychology field is predominantly white. It's like 87% white. And being white is not a problem. It's the lack of cultural competency and the lack of being educated on whatever implicit racial bias you're acting on. So I've definitely had some very questionable experiences with therapists, and I've never had a Latina therapist. My last therapist, like I just saw her this week, is the first Black woman that I've ever worked with, and it's been like a huge difference. And I was like, oh my gosh, because the one before that, I was like, this may sound wrong to some people, but it's like if they're not Black or brown, I can't. Like the next person has to be Black, Latina, Native. That's just what
Mm,
it is. Because I'm tired of these therapists, at least the ones that I've worked with, that will say like just off the wall comments and just whatever. So I'm not surprised looking back that like the therapists that I did see were not really that helpful. Like I remember, for example, the first one, when I disclosed my childhood sexual abuse, she was like disinterested. Like she was literally looking out the window and then she's like, "Oh, was he senile?" And it's like senile means like they're mentally incapacitated. So to me, that felt like invalidation. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Nah, he was a pedophile. like,
Hmm.
like what? So that's just one example where it's like I never really felt heard
Mm.
and things like that. So I was in therapy, but was it the type of therapy that I needed? No.
Mm.
So
And I feel you because I won't mention her name, but my therapist I have currently is a non-person of color, and I had to call my therapist out in Florida that I haven't had like a therapy session with her since like July, and I was like, it's different. I said I go into I said it's face to face. I just don't feel like she gets it. She understands what it is I have experienced up until this point,
mhm.
and she was like, just give her a chance. And I said, I can't. I said, I've been, you've been my therapist for like 2 years. I went from that to just like, okay, it's like when my therapist I had in Florida was like talking to like a family member, and where it was like, she would be mad at me, like 'cause some of the things that I was telling her, like, why are you, relationship issues? Why are you putting yourself in this situation? I'm like, okay, now this is the type of therapist that I need because you're understanding like, okay, this person have been through some stuff. Heck, I might have been through something similar that he's discussing. And so that to me is where, you have to, and I would advise you to just keep looking. Oh no, you have one now. That's good. But, for those out there, if you need one, if you don't like your therapist and your insurance can cover it, yeah,
Mhm.
go get you another one until you find one that's gonna suit your needs and not the other way around.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Definitely shop around for that chemistry and that connection, which I didn't know.
Mhm.
This last therapist was the first time that I actually chose a therapist.
Okay.
Everyone else, it was referred to me by school or by my parents, and what was available in my area,
Hmm.
which was what I was surrounded by. So, yeah, it really does make a difference.
For sure. And let me see, Talon said, conversations like this plant the seeds of change. I'm sorry that was your experience so wrong. Like I
Thank
said,
you.
that's why I created this space because we need more people like ourselves that are basically speaking out for it. Because like I said, the norm doesn't hear this every day, and then they think like, okay, they're just making it up. Nah, this is two complete strangers that are talking, that are sharing something that's very similar. So, well, respect to that.
Exactly.
And so, you got sober November 2nd of 2011
Yeah.
after I guess you said 3 years of binge drinking, so to speak. And so, how has life been for you, like over these last 11 years? You're in counseling, you're doing amazing things today, but how was it for you at first? Because I know, and it's nothing to take away from the time period, but of your drinking, but like, did you have those cravings once you actually got sober? I know you said you still go out and do things that others may not do, that in their sobriety, but how has things been for you through these 11 years?
So there's a lot to unpack with that. So what I'll say is once I stopped drinking,
Mhm.
I developed an eating disorder. Not
Oh,
consciously. It just it's like my body and my mind replaced one addictive behavior with another addictive
oh,
behavior. And
okay.
so that was wow. I don't even know how many years I was struggling, probably from like 2013 to 2018. So it'd be like 5 years of struggling with my eating disorder. And I didn't realize that there was such a strong correlation between eating disorders and trauma
Mm.
and also substance use. Because basically, if you don't address the underlying trauma, you will keep looking for something else to soothe that pain. And so, okay, now I can't, my hands are tied, I can't drink. So, okay, this eating disorder is kind of giving me that same effect. It's numbing me out. You know, when you don't eat, you don't have energy, you don't have anything, you're just like a walking corpse. So
Okay.
that was very difficult to overcome. Um, so that's 8 of those years, and there was other traumas that I experienced, unfortunately, once I did get sober that were very life altering,
Mm.
and I still didn't go back to drinking, but for
Mm.
most of those years, I still had an eating disorder. Um, I also did not get the correct diagnosis until like 2018.
Mm.
And I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder.
Mm.
And that is a spectrum. So I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's highly stigmatized. Basically, when someone's borderline, um, think like, who's borderline? There's a few celebrities. Oh, Brandon Marshall, he's a football player.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So basically, the stereotype is you can't be in relationships, you're crazy, you're like
Mm.
off the wall. Um, for me, mine was more of what they call a quiet BPD, where a lot of it was internal. And
Mm.
so I don't know if I want to expand on all my symptoms, but it's definitely
Oh no,
something
no, no!
that,
Listen, I don't want to. Listen now. You share what you like, okay? Whatever you feel comfortable with. So, like I said, we don't have to. So, you know what I mean? Nah, you good. Trust me.
yeah, but it's like basically you don't know how to cope with emotions and you don't know how to validate and regulate your own nervous system.
Mm.
And people that develop borderline, I think if you had childhood trauma, you're 13 times more likely to develop it. And if the environment that you grew up in was very invalidating,
Mm.
you
Okay.
you're setting yourself up to develop it, or you were set up to develop it. So that actually made a lot of sense of my substance use, my drinking, my eating disorder, my unstable relationships, my identity confusion, as far as like what's my sexuality, what do I want to do in life? Like there was a lot going on. And all of that falls under the umbrella of borderline. And so once I got the proper treatment for borderline, I was this is the healthiest and happiest I've ever been
Mm.
because I did the DBT therapy, I take medication, um, and I was just validated where it's like I'm not crazy. And there's such a strong stereotype of the crazy Latina girlfriend, the crazy Latina, she's fiery, she's spicy, all this nonsense. And I've dealt with that all my life. So a lot of times I was just told I had an attitude or I'm being ghetto or I'm acting like a chola, things like that. And it's like, no, I'm somebody who's in pain that doesn't know how to express that pain in a healthy way. And
Mm.
all I needed was someone to validate it and listen to me and explore, well, where does that invalidation come from?
Mm.
Who invalidated me growing up? What happened to me, And once you start exploring my childhood and exploring other traumas, it's like, it makes sense. Now I have so much more compassion and empathy for myself,
Okay.
which is an accomplishment because for other people, I can very generously love and not judge people. But for myself, it's like, very hard on myself. And once I was able to work on healing, now I'm able to give myself that same grace. And I don't want to hurt myself. I don't want to do anything that is anything but love to myself.
All right. That's That's what's up. Now, I appreciate you. I really do appreciate you sharing that because I know that some of the things that you've mentioned are definitely some touchy topics and hard to talk about. You know, to me, I'm not a professional, and so I do appreciate that. That you are confiding, sharing it not only with myself, but those are that
The
are viewing the
world.
podcast. Yeah, so I appreciate it. Um, Now, see that I think that you know it this one is interesting because like the fact that like I think that it's a disparaging problem that the black and brown community has
Mhm.
when it comes to just addressing trauma, period. And because I faced trauma as a kid that my family to this day don't even know about. You know what I'm saying? And by talking to you, it makes me like now I need to go talk to a therapist about some of these other issues that I had because I just felt like just I didn't know who to trust to even say it.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And by having this conversation, it's making me like, okay, you need to address it because there are problems and issues that you still have at
Mhm.
43. And so that to me is why, like I said, I do this because it gives me the courage to address some issues that I have in my life, in my past that I'm like, okay, I got to get through it. I got to work through it even at my age. So I commend you as far as, getting to the root of the problem, you
Mhm.
know, seeking the necessary help. Okay, this person's not diagnosing me the right way. Okay, let me go to somebody else and find out. Okay, I'm still struggling with X, Y, and Z. Okay, switch up the medication. Because even you mentioned Antabuse. Oh, I had a stomach ache because I was prescribed Antabuse. And I know what it feels like of drinking on that. And it made me rather sick. And this was back in 2016, laying in a hotel in Phoenix, Arizona right before I got sober. And yeah, so I felt that all in my stomach. Now, like what do you think as far as, with technology today and having platforms like we both have to have these discussions? And we'll get into your coaching venture in just a second. But why do you think it's important for us, black and brown, to have these issues, have these discussions, and be okay with it? Because a lot of times we our families don't have those talks with us.
Mhm.
They kind of tuck it away, like, okay, something we may think something happened, but we're not gonna address it. And then
Mhm.
once it becomes like, you're spiraling out of control, and then they're like, okay, and then maybe you get upset when you're intoxicated or something, and you come out and you blurt out, well, this is what happened at 10 or something,
Mhm.
instead of let's just have the conversation because I think the education may have lacked. And I'm just speaking from my own personal experience of like what my parents or my grandparents didn't do to them. And so that's why now I don't want that to happen going forward in life. So just to have the conversation is what is needed today.
Everything you said is gems, just dropping gems. I relate to everything that you said, and I'm glad that our conversation is inspiring you to want to explore other traumas that you haven't felt safe enough to explore yet. That's like my biggest advice is whatever you've been through, it never goes away. It's
Mhm,
always there in your body, even if you don't think about it.
mhm,
So that's the best thing you can do for your healing is just really get down to the core of everything,
mhm,
which is not easy, but it's definitely worth it. And as far as platforms, my first thought is where else do we see this? Because growing up, I lived in mostly predominantly white areas, not because my parents, had an affinity towards white people, but because that's where the schools with the best resources are. That's where the safest areas are. And that's what they wanted. They didn't want my brother and I to have their same experiences growing up in the States and then growing up abroad. And so I never saw people like me. Like I never, even in
mhm,
class, that's why I have this close bond with Black communities because in my classrooms, I felt safety when there was another person. I'm pale, I'm super pale, I recognize that, but I still had a connection where it's like you get it, like you understand. And so yeah, so I know that feeling so well, and I felt it all throughout school and post college. I've always been the only or one of very few Latinas or Hispanic person. And so, for example, my eating disorder, I was in self denial because I thought that only happened to white women.
Mm.
And that's really just what I thought. I didn't, no one showed me anything else. No one showed me, anytime that I saw someone with an eating disorder, I saw a white woman. And that's backed up by studies that the face of an eating disorder has been middle class white women. And so that did hurt me because I didn't even make the connection that maybe what's going on with me is an eating disorder.
Mm.
And like alcohol addiction, you can die from an eating disorder. Like it's horrible. You can have a heart attack, you can have a brain injury, etc. So it is literally life-saving to have spaces like this where people can see themselves in us. Like I can see myself in you and some of the things that you've said. And that makes me feel less isolated, more connected. Because human connection is the opposite of addiction. That's what really fights against it, is when you feel close and safe to someone else. And so I still
Thank you for
remember,
that. Thank you for that too. I appreciate that.
of course,
That
all
compliment for sure.
facts. Like I remember with my borderline, with my drinking, with my eating disorder, I was never this open. Like
Hmm.
all of those things had a lot of secrecy and shame around them. But once I started healing out loud, that has helped tremendously. Because when you own your story and your identity, no one can use it against you. Like, okay, yes, I'm borderline and okay, I used to binge drink, et cetera, et cetera. I own everything that I've ever done or said in my life, and I hold myself accountable. And so I recall like seeing a black woman that lives with borderline and seeing her platform on Instagram years ago. I was like, wow, like I've never seen someone who wasn't white have borderline and just live out loud and talk about it. And that really inspired me to start talking about it. And now today it's like I talk about it all the time because I know that there's someone that needs to hear this. There's a lot of us that need to hear this. And
Most definitely.
it's the
Most
least I
definitely.
could do.
And now uh let's talk about this amazing platform you have. This www.priscillamaria.com. What made you go into coaching?
So maybe it's part of borderline, but it has been very hard to define my path.
Mhm.
I had a lot of different pressures growing up. And so throughout my entire school career, I've been very high achieving.
Mhm.
Even when my brother was dying in a coma and I'm out here throwing up in the bathroom because I'm so stressed out, I still went to every class. I still got A's. Like that's not healthy and that's not okay. And so if I'm willing to do that, I was definitely willing to just keep going through the motions through life. So I went to law school after college, and the whole time I was there, I'm like, I don't know why I'm here. Like, I love it. I appreciate it. I learned so much. I developed so many skills. I went on a scholarship. Like, I was super blessed. But the whole time, I'm like, I don't know, like, what am I doing?
Mhm.
And it's because I felt like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm being a dutiful daughter. I'm carrying the family legacy. I'm making up for my brother's mistakes, if you want to say, and things like that. And so I had so much pressure that I was kind of feeding into. You know, my parents, both of them fled their countries for different reasons. So, like my father, he fled warfare. So my
Mhm.
father, his A score is like 1,000, and I'm not even trying to be funny. Like he's really that's the average childhood experiences. he has experienced so many traumatic events, and my mom as well. And so when you bring two very traumatized people and, you know, they're immigrants, they're trying to figure out a new place in a new country, young parents, it's it would have been very surprising if my brother and I had all these coping skills and all
Mm.
these, yeah, all these tools. So once I finished law school, I was like, I'm done. Like I can't keep going through the motions. I can't keep atoning for things that I didn't do. I can't keep being a people pleaser. I was definitely a huge people pleaser. So I got my little JD, and I did actually study a little bit for the bar. And it was when I was studying for the bar that I was like, who am I doing this for?
Mm.
On God, I don't give a shit if it's an amazing accomplishment, absolutely. But I was like
Mhm.
imagining myself, okay, you get the Esquire, behind your name. You pass the bar. Now you're an attorney in California. And that wasn't making me happy. That
Mm.
wasn't like I felt like I would be happy because my parents would be happy. And that would be the extent of that accomplishment. And that's not a reason to take the bar. That's not a reason to go and be an attorney. And
Mm.
so, and I'll give you another example. When I was studying for the bar, there was an incident where I was followed into a bathroom and by a man, and he thought I didn't see him or hear him, and he went and hid in a stall. I don't know what he was planning to do, but once I saw him go, I was out, and I was shaking. I ran because I knew like we're all alone. There's no reason for you to be following me into a bathroom. But just like I did in college, all right, I talked to police, I talked to my boyfriend about it, and then I went back to studying. I went back to that's how I always was. Like literally the world could be ending, but I'm gonna still do what I need to do, and that's not healthy.
Mm.
So at that point, I was like, I'm done playing this part. Who is Priscilla? What is my passion? My passions have always been social justice since I was like in middle school, and mental health. And so I wasn't sure what that looked like.
Mhm.
So I did have different jobs in between law school and now, which one of them was working for a law firm, ironically, and a nonprofit and things like that. But once on Instagram, actually, I came across someone's account where they were speaking about trauma recovery coaching. And I looked into it. I was like, this is perfect. I don't want to do a clinical position where I'm diagnosing people or I'm doing studies and things like that. I just want to connect with people and be a support system, the support that I needed growing up. And
Mm.
so once I saw, okay, like this accredited program offers this coaching certification. I took it. I went through months of training. And now it's like, okay, this is my calling. And I'm still figuring out I guess, the nuances, but I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
And why is it important to break harmful habits?
Because people die every day because of those harmful habits. And a lot of them die without even talking about that pain. So, as someone who has engaged in multiple harmful habits, I know firsthand why people do it. In our society, a lot of things are glamorized: binge drinking, unprotected sex, being promiscuous, things like that. And it's like, I'm the type of person that I'm like, let's talk about it. Because anyone that is at peace and content with their life doesn't want to escape the reality, doesn't want to not be present and connect with people. Because when you're intoxicated, that's the whole point. You're in a different mental space. I don't push sobriety on anyone, but it's something that I'm willing to talk to anyone about if they want to talk about it. And the same thing with cycles of generational trauma. You mentioned earlier that whatever your grandparents did to your parents, they did it to you with their parenting.
Mhm.
And that is like a very big theme in my family when I see there's many cycles that keep turning. And I was like, no, they all end with me. The drinking, the cult of silence around sexual abuse definitely ends with me. I'm telling everybody, I'm telling the world. Um, Domestic violence, poverty, things like that. I was like, I'm not bringing kids into this world unless I'm going to provide them with the most healthy form of love. And so that's also been a really big motivator for me. It's like,
I agree, and I think that's probably the reason why I haven't had kids yet, because
I
I'm
don't have
like,
kids either.
I'm trying to build a list of like how I can be just that much of a better father or a better parent. I'm not taking away anything from what my parents did, because like I said, I am the first one, that legacy, as you mentioned, first one to get the bachelor's, first one to get the master's degree. And potentially, if I decide to go back and get this PhD, because I started it, I think it was in 2019, I think I started the PhD program. So I might get back into it again. But let's see. On your site also, you said, you just mentioned it, reconnect with your mind, body, and spirit, reclaiming your power and voice. I thought that was definitely key. And then the last one was reach each goal you set. And that was when that one probably was by far the most that stood out to me, because of the fact that like when I went to rehab 6 years ago, I was like, all right, I can't go home. Once I get out of this treatment facility, I got to do something. So like I said, when I was in rehab, I'm like, okay, I got to find a place to live. I got to enroll in school or enroll back in school. And those goals were met. And then, like I said, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to get this master's degree. I tried to knock it out in 3 semesters. My advisor prevented me from doing that, but I was on the verge of doing it in 3 semesters. And I like that. That stood out to me, because like I said, it to me is like, it is a matter of setting those goals. And they don't have to be like something extravagant, just something that can be attainable and it works for you. And like you said, you're not worried about what other people think. It's focusing on you and bringing it back into yourself. And so that's why I think that, ladies and gentlemen, I put her website in there. You guys either go ahead and sign up for her coaching, because her energy and spirit will definitely help you along the way. And so yeah. So before we cut this in the interview, I have 2 quotes. And I didn't go over this with you for a reason. And but I these ones really stood out to me or resonated with me. Forgive yourself for the times you believed what you wanted to see instead of what was there. Appreciate yourself for now seeing the truth. And that was heartfelt. I was just like, and see, like I said, that's where it was like, man, you know what? I do need to, get myself together as far as, opening up more and sharing some of the things that happened to me in my past, because I still struggle with those, memories to this day, and then the second one was your own family will talk shit about you when you're in the process of breaking all their generational curses. This ain't for the weak. And both of those stood out, because I know that, even to this day, a lot of my, both sides of my family has a very extensive history of alcoholism. I am truly the first one to come out and say, look, I struggle with it. I'm talking about it almost every single day, and I'm trying to better myself. And just by the fact of me bettering myself and they're still out there drinking, I'm the one that's frowned upon. And so it shouldn't be that. You should just be happy that, okay, there's one person. And I'm, like I said, I'm like one of the only persons that carries a last name that has all these degrees. And it's like, I realize my problems, but now I'm trying to better myself to help others and help, whenever that time comes for me to have a family, that I know, okay, I'm not going to put, any child through what I went through, and will be there. And so those 2 really stood out to me. So I don't know if you have anything you want to touch on both of those, but I definitely wanted to, shout you out on those two quotes.
Thank you. Those weren't original, so I don't want to get credit for something that I
Oh,
didn't say.
oh, okay, my bad. I
Shout out
thought
to
you had
them.
the. I thought those was yours. My
Oh, no,
bad.
no, no, no. But I posted them, and I don't remember their names, but whoever I tagged, because I also felt very strongly about what was being said. So the second one about your family speaking down on you for airing out the dirty laundry in public is very relatable. I've definitely been that person that's been accused of starting drama, being disrespectful, holding grudges. I've been told all types of things. We're not
Mm-hmm.
even gonna get into that. And I don't take it personally because I know who I am. I know my heart. I know how I treat people. I know what my intentions are. And I also know that each person views the world according to their own experiences, their own ego, their own feelings. So
Mm-hmm.
you vilifying me for healing out loud is a reflection of how you feel about yourself and your
Mm.
own traumas that you're trying to safeguard from the world. That's
Big
not a
fact.
me problem, that's a you problem. And I love you enough to work with you. Like, let's talk about it. I'm the type of person like, let's all talk about it. Let's talk about the pedophiles in the family. Let's talk about the wife beaters. Let's talk about the substance abusers. But at least in my culture, when you do that, you're being disrespectful.
Mm.
You're going against the elders. You're going against the family fabric, and you're not supposed to do that. So the
That's
work
a
that I'm doing,
black and brown culture. Not to cut you off. That's a black and
yeah.
brown cultural thing. I'm gonna keep it real with you.
hmm Yeah, so it's like we become the problem for wanting to bring solutions to the problem.
Mm.
And think of anybody, Malcolm X, MLK, whatever leader, they also face a lot of, and I'm not trying to say I'm on that level, but just because you receive backlash doesn't necessarily mean you're doing something wrong. You might just be doing something that people aren't ready for. But
Mm.
we're not here to live in the status quo in the comfort zone if that comfort zone has been very toxic. So I'll be that. I'll be all of that. If that means that one of my other cousins will feel empowered to also speak about their traumas,
Mm.
or one of my aunts will feel empowered to lead their husband.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be all that because at the end of the day, I want other people to be happy and healthy.
Yeah.
And yeah, not everyone's going to be excited for that. And
I
then
hear
the first quote about seeing what I wanted to see versus what was actually there, and now knowing the difference. Um, yeah, that, like I said, I've always struggled with people pleasing
Mm.
and being a rescuer, wanting to save people. That's something I'm still working through. I don't know why. I mean, I do kind of know why, but I tend to put other people first. That's
Mm.
always been my default, is I need to take care of other people before I take care of myself. That was reinforced in my family, my culture, and my religion.
Mm.
So now it's like I forgive younger Priscilla who didn't know that it was okay to voice certain things, that it was okay to go against the grain, and also for not reacting to certain trauma, because that's a big thing with trauma. When you experience trauma and you don't react, that increases the likelihood that you will remain traumatized. And so that was the case for me in two specific, well, I mean, it's more, but these are the two I'm thinking of. Sexual traumas, I was frozen. And that really killed me. And it was something that I had to work through and understand my reactions and understand how I was still able to love those men and things like that. And it's like you have to get really deep into it and almost forgive yourself or have compassion for younger versions of yourself. Because even with my drinking, like there's definitely been instances where I'm not proud. Well, no, there's a lot of instances where I'm not proud of, and I'm not I I'm disappointed in myself, but it's like I own it. And I've even reached out to people from my past and apologized and taken accountability. And I don't mind keep doing that. Um, but yeah, just my whole thing is self-forgiveness is key and self-compassion.
Mm,
If you continue to shame yourself and put yourself down or harm yourself in whatever form, you will remain unhealed. You will remain in survival mode. You will remain unhappy.
mm.
And you can put on a front for the world on Instagram, but when you lay down at night and you're just with your thoughts, that's when you have
Just
to
do
be
that.
real with yourself. You can't hide from
Yeah,
yourself all the time.
big facts on that one. I got two more quick questions.
Okay.
Um, Advice you can leave those that might still be facing some type of trauma right now. What advice would you give them?
My advice would be to, if you can, find somebody that you trust and start to heal out loud. And that's super hard. Like that, okay, so 8 is when I was molested and I didn't fully come out with it until I was 19. That's 11 years. And that's about average for most sexual abuse survivors is, oh, I forget, it's just like it's a huge amount of years. And then most people don't even talk about it. They die with that secret. So I understand it's very hard, but if you're able to find one person that you can trust, start talking about it, start letting it out. It's not something that you can write on a paper and burn it away, which people in my family think that, or pray it away, or not think about it and act like it didn't happen. It never goes away. It's always in your body. You have to directly face it. And I don't know what that looks like for each individual. It could be therapy, or it could be some type of spiritual journey. It could be exercise. It could be yoga. Whatever it is, find something that you can learn to feel safe again within your body. You can learn to revisit memories and know that those memories are the past. They're
Mm,
not present threats anymore. And it's easier said than done, but even if mentally you're like, okay, that was, both of us have childhood trauma. We are of whatever age we are, literally decades, like so many years ago, but we still remember it. We can still feel it. We can still relive that. And so it's important to be able to face them, but also leave them where they
yeah.
are. And to do that, you typically need help. You need someone. So I'm happy. I'm not here to sell my coaching. What matters more to me is if someone needs to talk to someone, you can talk to me as Priscilla and we can
Mm,
talk because that has happened to me many times where people disclose certain traumas and for the first time and I'm happy for them, like good for you, like you're letting it out because you don't deserve to continue to be chained by something that happened to you that you didn't even do. That's not
mm.
your shame and your hurt to carry.
I don't even have to ask the second question because that's kind of like that's what I wanted you to say. Well, not word for word, but forget the alcohol part. The trauma itself is what I wanted to hear about the most. Priscilla, I promise you, we can talk all night.
Let's,
I could
yeah, we
just
can
share,
talk. Yeah, I
you
know
know
you
what I'm
have a
saying?
panel, but
Yeah, I do. I have a panel here in a few more minutes, but I just wanted to say I really do appreciate all of the information that you shared. I know that some of it may have been difficult for you, but I do appreciate you sharing with me and the world. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, you know, I wish, you nothing but the greatest of success because, you know, you are someone that's gonna continue to help others because, you seem to have a good heart. and you're very honest with what you have already shared. You know what I'm saying? And to those out there, therapy does work. You just got to find someone that's, that will guide you through whatever, struggles that you're facing. I don't know. I don't have too much more to say. I know I probably missed that one key thing you told me you wanted to talk about. I
Oh yeah,
think
no, you
yeah, I'm sorry,
next
but
time.
like I said, you was given a lot of information, so I was like, dang, I know I'm gonna miss it. That's why I told you to remind me. But
Oh, I
never
forgot.
know. Yeah, it's all good. You never know. We might have a part two. You know what I'm saying? And then also, I'm trying to do some collaborations in terms of working with Black and Brown. So once you get off this one,
Always.
check out a few minutes of the next live because
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
With
yeah. So
Jessica.
yeah,
Okay,
so
cool.
we trying to pull it all together because we got in terms of this, and to be able to speak out loud and be like, hey, we're not ashamed. We have a past, but we're trying to move forward to break those generational curses
Hmm.
because we don't want those curses to continue. You
Exactly.
know what I'm saying? And I you have a great platform.
Thank you.
Like I said, and I'm gonna be, I ain't gonna say bugging you, but I may share some things with you later. You know what I'm saying?
I'm
Because
all ears.
you
Like
truly
that.
you truly inspired me for real. Because it was, yeah, you hit a couple different nerves with just with the information that you shared. So I don't know. I don't have anything else unless you got something for me.
Thank you, Kenneth, just
Okay.
for having this platform. There's a lot of alignment in our values and our mission with Black and Brown and breaking generational curses. Um, I think the last thing I'll say, because this is about people in recovery, is that whether it's drinking, gambling, sex, toxic relationships, these are all symptoms.
Mm,
A lot of people think, oh, nobody's drinking because they're like so thirsty. They're drinking because they want to escape something. So whatever your symptom is, please go in depth and explore what is the underlying pain or trauma or mental health condition. That's all I
yeah,
want for everybody.
most definitely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes another wonderful, wonderful episode of 12 Faces of Sober Speaks podcast. Thank you, Priscilla, for blessing the show. Great insight. I appreciate you. Until next time, another 24 hours, I will be going live again, but this time is dedicated to the veterans. So stay tuned for that one. And like I said, peace and blessings to you, Priscilla. And
You
thank you
too.
again for joining the show.
Buenas noches.
All right, now,
Bye.
take care.